Greetings to everyone out there in the NoDQ galaxy. Welcome to another edition of NoDQ video here on NoDQ.com and the YouTube channel, youtube.com/AaronRiftNoDQ. I have your questions from twitter.com/AaronRift using the hashtag NoDQTurns20. Let's go ahead and get started today. First one comes from SCW Wrestling Channel. Hey Aaron, which superstars do you feel the need to change shows with the upcoming Superstar Shakeup, and do you expect any major surprise moves with the shakeup next week? As far as people that need to move, I feel people that are stale on whichever show they're on could definitely benefit from moving and having some fresh opponents. I think Finn Balor would benefit from moving to SmackDown Live. It would give him some new opportunities, some new opponents. Seth Rollins is another guy since he's been on Raw since the brand extension started. Just a different environment, I think, for guys that have been on one brand since the brand extension started. As for SmackDown guys, maybe Rusev. Rusev Day doesn't seem to be getting any respect on SmackDown Live. He's like Rodney Dangerfield. He gets no respect. Maybe Rusev could have a fresh start over on Monday Night Raw. As I've said before, I think if I had to make one prediction, it would be that Daniel Bryan and The Miz will end up on the same show, so the two of them can finally finish up what they started back during the Talking Smack era. Daniel Bryan versus The Miz. I see that happening sometime this year. So for that to happen, realistically, without the storyline making no sense, unless you have them face off at Survivor Series, I guess, I see them both being on the same brand, which means one of them will be switched over to the other brand. Will it be Miz? Will it be Bryan? That remains to be seen. This one comes from Chris. Hey Aaron, would it make sense for Daniel Bryan to go to Raw to feud with Seth Rollins for the IC title, since he never really lost it in the first place due to injury, and have Finn go over to SmackDown and feud with AJ for the WWE title? I don't know about Bryan feuding with Rollins for the IC title, but certainly Daniel Bryan versus Seth Rollins is a dream match that WWE can definitely have take place if Bryan goes over to Raw. That's why I think Bryan going over to Raw does make sense, because as I mentioned earlier, not only can you do Bryan versus The Miz, you can do Bryan versus Rollins in a big one-on-one feud. And there's other possibilities too. You could do Roman Reigns versus Daniel Bryan again. How about Daniel Bryan versus Samoa Joe? That's another possibility. And as I mentioned earlier, Finn Balor going to SmackDown. You brought that up in the question. That could give some new life into Finn Balor's career, and he could certainly have a feud with AJ Styles for the WWE title. That is something I think a lot of fans would like to see, the battle of the Bullet Club head honchos, or the club, whatever you want to call it. That would be a really exciting feud to watch. So yeah, I think just to change things up, I like the idea of Balor going to SmackDown and Bryan going over to Raw. And people ask me, are there going to be any surprises? I just got that previous question. I don't know if there's going to be any real surprises. I think the biggest surprise would be somebody like Roman Reigns going over to SmackDown Live, and I don't see that happening. I could, however, see Bryan going to Raw. Historically, we've seen Raw get the better end of these Superstar Shakeups or drafts or whatever you want to call it. Typically, because Raw is the A show, Raw gets the best picks. I could see Daniel Bryan, now that he's back, Vince McMahon wanting to have him go over onto the A show. I could see that definitely happening. But yeah, I'm not really expecting any other big surprises. There's not a whole lot else that would surprise me. Really, the only big surprise, I think, would be Reigns going to SmackDown Live, and I don't think that's going to happen. This one comes from Mr. Yuck. With the ever-progressing roster, who do you think Daniel Bryan will beat for his next championship, and which title do you think it'll be? Well, going back to that previous question, I guess he could fight Seth Rollins for the IC title, especially if Brock Lesnar is going to stick around and be Universal Champion for the time being. And even if he's not champion, even if Roman Reigns becomes the Universal Champion, I don't know if WWE will dive into that right away. WWE might wait on doing Daniel Bryan versus Roman Reigns. In the immediate future, I could definitely see Seth Rollins versus Daniel Bryan for the IC title. I think Bryan could possibly win that title so he can get back the title he once held. I don't think they'll play up on that, though, going back to that previous question. But I could see him competing for the title against Rollins and maybe winning the Universal title at some point. It's hard to say, though, because there's still no guarantee Bryan's going over to Raw. He could end up on SmackDown Live. If he does end up on SmackDown Live, I could see him in the WWE title picture. I think there's a lot of different variables to this. Not only which brand Bryan ends up on, but also his health. If Bryan's health holds up, I could definitely see him in the main title picture. If it's still iffy, I could see him maybe competing for the IC title or the US title if he stays on SmackDown. So a lot of it depends on what the circumstances are. This one comes from Bader the Viper. Hey Aaron, with Bryan getting cleared at last, do you see CM Punk coming back if he loses his second UFC fight and feud with Bryan? They should have been the main event of WrestleMania 30 for sure. No, I don't think CM Punk is coming back anytime soon. I do, however, think he will be back one day in some capacity. But coming back, let's say 6 months from now, if he loses the UFC fight, that would really surprise me. I'm not expecting that to happen. I don't think people should get their hopes up about it. But then again, stranger things have happened. Daniel Bryan came back. He got cleared when nobody thought he would. CM Punk could come back. I definitely think it will happen one day. I shouldn't say definitely, but if I had to bet money on it, I would bet money that he'll be back one day. I just don't know if it's going to be right away. I think if he loses the UFC fight, he'll want to lay low for a while and not get back into the spotlight for the time being. That's just how I see it, at least. Who knows what's going through CM Punk's mind, but I think one day when he decides he's ready to come back, he'll be back. But really, only one person knows the answer to that, and that's him. This one comes from Liam. Could you see Ruby Riott going to Raw during the Superstar Shakeup now that Paige is SmackDown GM? Fans compared the Riott Squad to Absolution with their looks being a comparison, so why would WWE distance the two? Sorry, I butchered the end of that. Possibly, I could see maybe WWE having a super group, which I actually like that idea. That's what I think WWE should have done in the first place. Put together a super group with Absolution and the Riott Squad and make Paige the leader of that group. Make like a female NWO that tries to take over the entire company. I think that would have been really cool, but WWE did not do it. There's still time, though, to at least do something with the women and maybe put together a super group of the up-and-coming women in WWE. You could merge Absolution with the Riott Squad on Monday Night Raw now that Paige is a babyface GM on SmackDown. I do like that. Or maybe you could even have Mandy Rose and Sonya Deville come over to SmackDown and they form the group with the Riott Squad, and then they try to get in good terms with Paige and try to get Paige to do them favors. But of course, Paige is a babyface, and you could have Paige feuding with them and a big power struggle, much like Vince McMahon and DX or something like that. That would be interesting. But yeah, it'll be it'll be interesting to see if Riott and the rest of the Riott squad, if they even get a good spot on television. Who knows if they'll even be drafted or if it'll even be mentioned on television. That's still a big question mark. And Liv Morgan just recently posted the NXT run sheet on her Instagram story, and that might get her in some hot water, and it could affect potentially her partners in the Riott squad, because their biggest strength right now is as a group. And if Liv Morgan does something that gets the rest of them in trouble, it could affect the entire group and their push in general. So yeah, like I said, it'll be really interesting to see what happens to them during this Superstar Shakeup. Got this one here from It's the Costanza. Do you think WWE, once they and if they put Owen Hart in the Hall of Fame, they will create an Owen Hart award like the Warrior Award, or is that a terrible idea for Owen Hart? I think you're putting the cart before the horse here. Owen Hart going into the Hall of Fame is still a big question mark. We don't know if it's going to happen or not. Only Martha Hart knows. Even if it does happen, I don't think something like that would happen, because you already have the Warrior Award. Why add on even more awards? Now, it does sound, I hate to say it, it does sound like a WWE thing to do, to just go overkill and add even more awards to the Hall of Fame. But I think just Owen Hart going into the Hall of Fame is a victory in itself, and there's really no need to make an Owen Hart award. Just give him the induction and honor his legacy, and that's that. Don't go overboard with it. So yeah, I don't think it's a good idea, and realistically, I don't think WWE will do it. I think that's very much a long shot. I think everybody will be happy just to have Owen Hart go into the Hall of Fame and call it a day. Got this one here from They See Me Rollins. Is it a mistake for WWE to do the greatest Royal Rumble on the same day that Avengers Infinity War, aka the biggest movie of the year, is released? Who is going to prefer to watch Reigns vs. Lesnar again instead of a great superhero movie? I really don't think it makes any difference. I mean, for one thing, the greatest Royal Rumble is airing at noon on that Friday, and that's 9 a.m. Pacific time. Most people, I think, that will be watching the movie will either do so Thursday night when the midnight showing is, or watch it Friday night. A lot of people don't go to the movies in the early part of the day. So for the people watching live, it's really going to have little to no effect. And people on demand, they'll just watch it on demand. If not Friday night, they'll watch it Saturday or Sunday, whatever. So I really don't think it makes a big difference whatsoever. Now, if it was Friday night, it might be a different story. But still, there's enough people that are loyal WWE fans. I think they would still watch. At least most of them would tune in live for the WWE show, and they could wait a day for the movie. If they're diehard WWE fans, they're going to watch WWE. If they're bigger fans of Marvel or whatever, they're going to watch that stuff. And I apologize if I said the wrong comic book company or whatever. I'm not a comic book person, so I don't even know who the characters are for the most part. I know Batista's in the movie. That's all I know. This one comes from Alfredo. Hey, my compadre Aaron, a quick one. Better unsanctioned match. Y2J versus Shawn Michaels or Ciampa versus Gargano? For me, I think I would go with Gargano versus Ciampa, but that's also fresh in my memory. When I think back to Chris Jericho and Shawn Michaels, there's two matches that really stand out to me. The first one was from their first feud back in 2003. That, of course, is the WrestleMania 19 pay-per-view match. The second one is not the unsanctioned match, but the ladder match they had in Portland, Oregon, which I was not at because I was not living in Portland back then. But that was a great ladder match, and for me, that was really the culmination of their storyline. I thought that was a great ladder match, very entertaining, and I think that was the best match of the Jericho-Shawn Michaels feud in 2008. But some people like the unsanctioned match also, and 10 years from now, I'll have to look back, watch both matches again, and reassess things. But right now, because Gargano and Ciampa is so fresh on my mind, I'll go with that one, but time could change. Time could change my opinion on that. Got this one here from Michael. Hey Aaron, your thoughts on WWE merging the Heavyweight Championship and the Universal Championship now that the pay-per-views are dual branded? You are as awesome as The Miz. Well, thank you for that, Michael. I do appreciate it. I have talked about this before. Yes, I would like to see the titles merged. I'd like to see one world champion, one men's tag team champion, one women's tag team champion, and then you could have the US and IC titles be brand exclusive, and let that be it. And have the one champion defend on both shows. That way, there's more incentive to be the world champion. If you become the world champion, you get to be on both shows, so you make more money theoretically in the storyline. I like that concept. There's more to fight for, and it makes the world champion more of a big deal. It puts them more in the spotlight. I like it. I think it should be done. I think two world champions, it's a dispute. You should have an undisputed champion who is the guy, the number one guy, the best in the world. When you have two world champions, then there's a debate. Who's the best in the world? Unless it's Brock Lesnar against AJ Styles. AJ Styles has no chance. But yeah, I would like one champion. I think it's better, and just have that one champion go back and forth between shows, defending his title against various opponents from each brand. Got this one here from Big Mike's WRS. Why did Vince change the name of the Iconic Duo to the Iconics? I think it's lame, and why fix something if it isn't broken? I don't even have a good answer for that, other than Vince is Vince. Vince has some weird tendencies, and he makes some decisions that the rest of us think are very bizarre. For instance, not referring to a title shot as a title shot. It's now a championship opportunity. There's so many other phrases that Vince isn't a fan of, and it's just Vince being Vince. And he is a genius, and sometimes a person with that kind of mindset, they see things a different way as everybody else. Vince has his way of doing things, and he thinks certain words aren't going to work, whatever. For instance, the WrestleMania being referred to by a Roman numeral. He doesn't like the number because he thinks the number makes WrestleMania sound old. And in his mind, he's thinking what sounds best to him from a marketing standpoint. And the guy is very successful, so who's one to argue with him? I think Vince just makes these decisions, and in this case, it's a better name, I guess. As far as Vince or whoever, it might be somebody else, but my gut feeling is it's Vince, because they were the Iconic Duo in NXT, and now on the main roster, all of a sudden they changed their name. I feel like that's a Vince call. Triple H oversees NXT, and once it's on the main roster, it becomes Vince's concern, and Vince makes the final decisions when it comes to everything creatively in WWE. This one comes from Stephen S. Hey Aaron, have you had the chance to watch the Andre the Giant documentary? I thought it was fantastic, and overall your thoughts on Andre as a performer. And he is a first-time asker, so thank you for asking the question. I am wearing the Andre the Giant shirt today for a reason, because I was going to answer this question. Yes, I did see it on HBO Go, and I really did enjoy it. There wasn't a whole lot that I learned from it as far as new information goes, but I think for a casual viewer, it was very well done, and it really explores all the different parts of Andre's career, and I think it's a very nice biography, very well edited. I did find the whole thing about him and Vince having a falling out towards the end of his life to be interesting. And I would have liked to have maybe heard a little bit more about that. But other than that, it was a great documentary. It was cool that Hogan was a big part of it, considering all the headlines about him as of late. I mean, Hogan was a very critical part of Andre's career. And yeah, I definitely recommend people checking it out. I think it was a lot better than the A&E Andre documentary from, what was it, 20 years ago, around 1999, 2000, somewhere around there. Really well done, and I would like to see more HBO wrestler documentaries. Maybe one on Randy Savage or Roddy Piper next. That would be awesome. That'll wrap it up for this edition of NoDQ Video. Thank you all for watching. Stay tuned to NoDQ.com for the very latest regarding the greatest Royal Rumble and, of course, Backlash. Let's not forget about that. Stay tuned to NoDQ, and I will see you guys next time.